the Art and Industry of Business and Living podcast, discussing conscious choices around business, money, life and living, and creating a greater future for you and the planet. Hey everyone, welcome to the Art and Industry of Business and Living. You are, of course, with me again. Yes, you get me every week with Simone Milasas, your host, and I am in Buenos Aires, Argentina at the moment, and it's damn cold. You just have to look out the window and see those trees blowing and see people with their big jackets on and go, oh my goodness. And I'm here with one of my very good friends who's also been on this show before, Mr. Christopher Hughes.
Thank you again for having me. I love being on your show. I have so much fun with you.
And I want to paint the picture here. We're sitting on a big red velvet couch, which I'll see if I can take some photos of after this. And there's these big red velvet curtains. And Chris is like, can we close the curtains?
I was trying to improve the sound quality.
He was trying to improve
here.
the sound quality. But it's like, I feel like we're in this big, sexy red velvet den in Buenos Aires, Argentina.
Yeah, and you can shut all the curtains. And it feels a little bit like this is a hotel where vampires would choose to go and stay, because there are blood red velvet curtains everywhere, and you can block the whole room out with them.
It's great, though. We love it. We love it. Yeah. So now the reason for this podcast was a bit spontaneous, which I love, is we were at breakfast and I was talking to Chris. I mean, I've been friends with Chris for, I don't know, feels like forever.
12, 15 years?
Quite a long time. Yeah. And so obviously we've seen a lot of changes that both of us have gone through and been around for that and et cetera. And you started off by saying, what did you start off by saying? Because it was about the change that you had been, like you were the happiest.
Yeah, there's something in me that I've chosen recently and changed. And I am happier than I ever remember being in my life. Like, it was so palpable this morning when I woke up and got out of bed that there was no aches and pains and, oh, I'm tired and, oh, this and worries in my world about anything. Not that there is an absence of situations that need attention or blah, 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 but I just am happier than I ever remember being.
Yeah, and and then what I asked Chris too was, I said, are you actually acknowledging the potency that you be? Like, what you are in the world? Because he's been facilitating a lot more. And I've noticed, I mean, obviously, you know, I've known Chris longer than I've known Brendan, though. But Brendan, my enjoyable other, and Chris, it's like the three of us have hung out a lot. And I said, I've noticed over the years, there was these moments where, I mean, I'm pretty strong, controlling, demanding, lovely female.
Matriarchal
that I be. And I've noticed that there's definitely some times that they would have made my point of view greater than their point of view. Not that I was asking for that, but I didn't fight it. And what I've noticed recently is both Brendan and Chris have become so much more of themselves, and that is no longer in existence, which has been an interesting energy for me to go, oh, and I also know it's creating more, and it will create more, and I have no idea what that's going to look like. But I've noticed both of them have become so much more of them, of the very being that made me attracted to both of them was like what I saw, it's like they're being that. And one of the things that we were talking about is how facilitating the Access Consciousness classes creates that for you. So can you talk a bit about that and what's occurred for you with that?
Yeah, absolutely. Because, I mean, the ironic part is I have been an Access facilitator for about 10 years. Like when I first found out about Access Consciousness, it was through a friend who, she was always introducing me to the latest metaphysical thing she was playing with. And I was kind of used to that with her, like whether it was the Pleiadians books or some other channeled information and body process and something and something and something. And I kind of got into the habit of dismissing whatever it was with her because I was like, oh, yeah, this is the latest, greatest answer in her world of what is going to make her happy. And when she started doing Access, I actually for the first time noticed a really tangible change in her world because she was always actually a really judgmental person.
Right.
And for the first time, I didn't feel as judged by her. I felt like there was so much more allowance for me just being me.
Right.
And I went, okay, whatever this is, I'll give it a whirl. And I had so many judgments of Access at first, and most of it was because I'd read one of the manuals and I thought the grammar was terrible and the spelling was terrible. And none of it made sense. And I was like, well, whatever this is. Blah, blah,
Bunch
blah.
of idiots.
Yes. But I had a class. And as soon as I went to my first class, I went, I need more. And booked a flight to Brisbane, Australia. I was living in Korea at the time, where I met you for the first time. And in first class with Gary Douglas. And ever since that, I was like, I had to have more and had to have more and had to have more. Because I recognized there was something there for me that would create, or that did scratch that itch of what I was looking for. The seeking that I had. It was like I had found the place, for anyone who's read the book by Gary Douglas. But I spent about 10 years as a facilitator actually not doing anything. Like,
can I ask, why do you think that is?
I think there was a level of honesty I wasn't actually willing to be with myself yet.
So is that like a matter of having to get it right before you facilitate?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, ever since I was a kid, my mom was always scratching her head and so frustrated with me because I did every sporting thing you could imagine, from archery to soccer to indoor soccer to wrestling to swimming to everything. But if I wasn't perfect at it immediately, I quit. And I didn't want to do it anymore. I was a diva.
Yeah.
I was like, no. If I'm not the star, I'm out. I'm out. This isn't for me, obviously. And it's funny because one of the stories I always tell, I'm a Right Voice for You facilitator, and I'm the lead for Right Voice for You as a class within Access Consciousness, one of the specialty programs. And one of the stories I often tell in my class is when I was a little kid, I was always told that I would be better at art and better at coloring in the lines as I got older. And every year on my birthday, I would wake up at 6 a.m. And I would rush to coloring books and see if I could color any better. And I could never color any better. I was always so like, what's this? What's going on?
That's so cute.
But
how many years did you do that for?
Oh, years and years and years.
Right.
Until I was kind of over coloring, you know.
Right.
But amazingly, what I facilitate people with in Right Voice for You, in a nutshell, is allowance for them to be whoever they are and not to look for that perfection and that judgment of how you should do something or how you should show up. So it's rubbed off on me, and now I have so much more allowance for me as a facilitator, and I'm willing to just get out there and do it. And also, I reflect on someone like Gary Douglas all the time, and I look at what it must have been like for him when he started doing these classes, when there was a handful of people and he was doing registration himself and there was no social media to promote anything. There was nothing like that.
No, it was word of mouth. They didn't have an email. They didn't have a website. Like when I came along, they had none of that. And I was like, how does this get out there? And they were like, oh, people just tell each other.
Yeah. But, I mean, I see facilitators all the time now whine that their classes are not as big as they would like or blah, blah, blah. Or they give up because they're facilitating a room of 5 people.
Which instead of, what if you were grateful for that? I was talking to someone the other day, and one of the books that was actually written by Gary Douglas and Dr. Dane here, who are the founder and co-creator of Access Consciousness, called Money Isn't the Problem, You Are. Now, that was based on a class that we did in the Gold Coast, Australia, many years ago. It was a 2-day class. You paid $250 to go. I organised the class. I got 55 people there. They flew over, economy, stayed in the shittiest hotel, and Gary was so excited, and he said to me, if you can get this many people to a class, we'll come over every month. And we were like, yay, and we were so excited and so grateful. And I get from that gratitude that they had for me creating that class, that the clients, the students had for being in the class, the book that got created from it. I had to beg Gary to put it into a book because he thought, well, the tools change all the time. And I'm like, yeah, but a lot of these tools are tools that are never going to change. If you put them into action and actualize these tools, you will change your money situation.
They will work no matter what.
And that book did change my money situation. But they flew over economy, did all of this, and I see people, complain that they can't, buy their business or first class ticket, but what have you got to create to get there?
Yeah, exactly. What choices can you make now with where your business actually is right now
Yeah.
to get to where you want to be.
And so many people would rather be right than be free. And one of the things I was talking to someone about this morning as well is this was before breakfast with you. I've been up since 4. was that, I mean, I wrote this book, Joy Business. We have Joy Business facilitators that are out there around the world, including you. And business is the one area I never, ever, 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 ever think I have it right. I'm always interested in how someone else is doing something, and it's like what they're being with it, what they know about it, and then what do I know about it. I do not disavow my knowing, though, because when I hear something and it goes, I call it like pinging. It pings me. I'm like, ooh, that. What if we change this? What if this occurred? And, you know, my favorite questions, what's right about this I'm not getting? When something, you know, screws up, which we've had a few things recently that sort of, you know, went to shit basically, but it was like, okay, so what's right about this we're not getting, and what do we need to change? And, you know, what other information is available? Who or what else can we add, you know, to the business? What else needs to change? What can we choose here? You've got to be willing to be functioning from that place of knowing what you know and yet not having to get it right. So one of the things I wanted to ask you too, Chris, is since facilitating, because you were saying that, you know, you used to do one class a year, and now it's, you know, it's this big build up to this one class, and then that class was over, and
then you'd almost have a hangover.
Right.
You'd be like, oh, that was great. And then, you know, it's like any event in your life that you've made really significant. You do this big build up and drive to that one event, and then afterwards you just sort of let it all go.
Right.
But now I've built myself enough of a schedule of what's next, that I don't have the luxury of that, thankfully. It's a constant state of creation because, okay, I just finished a class in Sao Paulo, Brazil that was the biggest one I've had yet. It was amazing. And what changed for people in their lives was humbling beyond belief. And it was a place where I was so humbled and honored by the vulnerability that people were willing to have in the class and the change that they chose, and forced to acknowledge my own capacity and ability to create that and invite people to that. So it was like...
That's the piece that I would like people to get. Because as you facilitate, I mean, you didn't go on stage and going, I have it right now. That's why I have the biggest class ever.
No.
What was your point of view when you walked on stage?
My point of view when I walked on stage was, how does it get any better than this? And how grateful am I that these people chose to be here and do this? And I even joked with them and I said, so you guys must be pretty weird if you've come here and many of you traveled from your hometowns and cities and countries to be here in a class to listen to this weird Canadian dude from Australia to talk to you about having your voice in the world. And most of you probably don't even know what having your voice in the world means. But you know that there's something that we can create together, not me do it for you, but we can create together to have a bigger life, have a greater future, and create change for us and everybody else.
And it's funny, I just came from Russia, which, you know, St. Petersburg, Russia, and you've got, the room was like 98% filled with Russians. And same thing, I was like, guys, you've got to claim and acknowledge the weirdness that you are being in this room and the change that is occurring. But every day I would ask, what energy can I be for this class? It's like, what energy can I be? It wasn't, what do I need to talk about? What, you know, working this out. And it's like, you know, trying to figure out what the day was going to be. Each day I asked, what energy, space and consciousness can I be to contribute to these people and contribute to this class and contribute to more consciousness on the planet? And that's how I'd walk in the class. Yeah. It's like, and then you'd have questions or something would ping you. Like, you know, the first morning, you know, they might not have had as many questions, but one of the things that I went, oh, I'd love to talk about definitions. And it's like in how you define yourself as being Russian, how you define yourself as being a man or a woman, etc. And then you follow the energy and see what shows up. But what I've noticed is yourself, myself, Brendan, like facilitating a lot more classes this year and many others as well, you become more of you. All the crap and the shit seems to stop that you found more important than who you could be.
And that's what I mean by it's humbling to watch people choose it and be it, but then also you have to acknowledge that in yourself too. Because some people think that they're doing classes and becoming a facilitator just for that. just to feel great about themselves and for that positive judgment. But what I've noticed is, yes, you have to be willing to acknowledge what you can create in the world and the greatness of you and your potency. And you have to acknowledge everybody else and what they're willing to choose too. It's not...
That is interesting. It's a fine line. Anyone I've seen that has come to Access Consciousness and become a facilitator and made it either about money or being a guru, never worked. Ever.
No.
Ever worked.
And some of them may create some sizable classes or some money or something for today, but there's never longevity.
Right.
There's never that process of growth, of actually creating something, an energy on the planet that contributes to more, which is what I know creates a future. It's like one of the things we talk about a lot in Right Voice classes is the difference between fame and stardom. And one of the greatest examples I have for people of what it is to be famous is where you're being an energy that creates a difference on the planet. And that never gets forgotten. They may not remember you and who you were, but what you created has a life force that continues to create and expand. So, say for example, Mozart. Mozart wrote Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star.
Right.
300 years ago. Everybody
Wow.
still knows that song.
Yeah.
But actually, so few people know he wrote it.
Right, yeah.
Santa Claus was a third...
Is he real?
He was real. Do you know what he was?
What?
He was a 3rd century Russian saint. And he was known for his generosity and for anonymously giving people gifts that he would leave in their shoes and have them not attributed to him, but he would see people in his area and in his community that required something, and he would leave it for them as a gift.
Seriously?
Yes.
So his name was, I just got shivers,
St. Nicholas.
St. Nicholas.
Yeah. And we still have him as part of our lives
Yeah.
and part of our culture because of what he was willing to be with generosity.
Right. So like what Tesla was willing to be, or like what Einstein, like it's like what they left here on the planet created something.
And it was not about them. But we remember them in what they were and what they added.
I love that, Chris.
Whereas stardom is about having everyone acknowledge you for how amazing you are today. And
It's
it never
true.
goes beyond today.
No, and you see people, I mean, we're talking about facilitators of access consciousness and facilitating access because that's one of the things that is, you know, a main priority in our lives. But you see businesses, people make it about them. Like, it's like, you know, rather than, I mean, it's funny because with this podcast, I always, when I have people on, I always say to them before, what I would like is people to be able to listen to the podcast and walk away with something extra that they can use to change something in their life or choose something different. You know, if they choose to come along to classes, great. That's like an extra bonus. But it's literally about people finding out some information and be willing to use it. Like the Business Done Different video series I have. You watched a video the other day and it's like, that's a free video series I have. But my idea is get some tools. And it's like, start changing your life. If you come to classes, awesome. Good choice. And you don't have to. You can also just choose to change today.
Yeah. And that free video that you made for that series, I used it in my business in Australia, the Antique Guild, with how we manage our staff there. And I used it in my class that I was doing in Sao Paulo. And
which is so cool.
I used it in so many different ways. Like it was my go-to tool for those 3 days because it reminded me of something. Because you asked the questions, what do they need, what do they require, and what do they desire? Asking that about your staff or yourself or your business or whatever. And you can apply that 1,000 different ways. And that was just a gift out there for me.
I actually made up a process this morning about this. What energy, space, and consciousness can my body and I be that would allow us to never desire, require, or need.
Yeah.
And only have choice. And everything that is times of Godzillion, right and wrong, good and bad, pock and pot, all nine shorts, boys and beyonds. And what would it take for me to never desire, require, and need and have infinite ultimate choice and everything that is times of Godzillion, right and wrong, good and bad, pock and pot, all nine shorts, boys and beyonds. Because Gary was saying last night too about Brendan when he said he doesn't require, desire, or need. He chooses. And I was like, man, I want that. Like, that's I'd like to be with everything.
Yeah.
That's just choice.
Yeah.
What if you had just choice?
Well, yeah, the other part about that too, the fourth question that I like to add to that is what do I expect?
Yeah.
Because what do I expect of me or what do I expect of the other person sometimes is like...
Entirely different.
Yeah, and you set yourself up for failure quite often. Like, let's say, for example, I was in those shoes of a facilitator who was judging themselves based on the size of a class that I was having. And for those of you out there with businesses of any kind, if you have an expectation of revenue flows or of how something's going to turn out, you are so often shooting yourself in the foot for failure because you've limited what it can be. I just did a class in Dublin, in Ireland, and it was the first class that I've actually facilitated on my own without a co-facilitator working with me. And it was right before a huge class with Access. And I had decided, or my expectation was, that because there were all these people in that city for this other big class, they would automatically
go to yours,
come a little earlier and come to mine. And it was automatic that this was going to happen, and it was automatic that was going to happen.
You can hear the questions in that, ladies and gentlemen, right?
So I ended up doing a class for 7 people or 6 people. You know, from a lot of people's point of view, it would be like, that's hard work, working with 6 or 7 people for 3 days. And some people would judge themselves or judge the class not enough. And I started to. And then I called Gary Douglas and I said, what do I do here? I'm obviously failing. Nothing's not working, blah, blah, blah. And he said, dude, you've been doing this for 6 months.
Yeah.
Could you maybe have some allowance for what you are creating?
Give yourself a break.
Give yourself a break. It's going to be fine. And I delivered an amazing class.
You did.
And everybody loved it with just that. And I was like, okay, so if that's where my business is today, what does it require of me?
Yeah. And
what can I do and be for it to create a greater future for tomorrow? Because that's also, to me, what creates that energy of fame, quote unquote.
Well, and what I noticed too, Chris, is the talk about that class. Interesting, it didn't feel like it was 7 people. It felt like it was 70 people. And people are still talking about that class. I tell stories that you told about that class. Like, it was brilliant, the things that you facilitated. And I think people are not willing to acknowledge, like, say that class in Dublin, how much energy in that class did it actually contribute to Brazil? How much is the energy from Brazil going to contribute to your next class, and so on and so on? It's like, just because the class is quote unquote over doesn't mean it's not a massive contribution to the future that you're creating with your business. It's like every client who walks in, if you're a hairdresser and gets their hair cut, that haircut is not done. That person then might go on to tell someone and say, oh, wow, just met this great hairdresser. They play good music, they do good haircut, do color, or something like that. It's like, so everywhere that you're not allowing everything that you create today to contribute to your future, we destroy and uncreate it.
Yes.
All right and wrong, good and bad, POC and POD, in shorts, boys and beyonds. And the main thing I wanted to talk about here today too was like to get out there and facilitate. Like, just go for it. And it's like, if it's facilitating an Access class and you're listening to this, that's great. I know I have thousands of listeners who are not. So it's the same thing with, whatever you're doing, whatever business it is, just get out there and do it. You might stumble and fall. You know what? Pick yourself up again, and you're going to be a better person and a greater person and be more of you every single day you choose to get out there and do what it is that you're choosing to do and be. Absolutely.
There's, one of the ladies who works with you has this class out there that she's doing called The Myth of the Scary Blank Page. Marnie Branco's doing that with Katarina Valentin in Sweden. And I haven't investigated the class yet, but just the title alone inspires me. The Myth of the Scary Blank Page. Like, for you, what would it create in your life if you actually just did get out there and start? Just went out and, for those of you who are Access facilitators, posted a class or posted a series. Like, I was just in Brazil, and there's something like 1,100 Access bars facilitators in the country of Brazil.
Yeah.
It's amazing. And what I noticed with a lot of their facilitators that inspired me too was they would have, okay, these are my 6 bars classes in August. These are my 5 bars classes in September. They've got pre-scheduled that every Saturday they're doing a class.
And do you know now there's bars in one of the major hotels in Brazil now? Like, you go to the spa and there's bars there. So it's great. But you know what? It's interesting too, because at the JCF training in Venice, we talked about some different projects that we wanted to create, and that was one of them. And I get that people go, oh, then it's already created over there. It's like, no, you've got to acknowledge that even us talking about it in Venice, Italy, with a whole bunch of worldwide JCFs, Joy Business Facilitators, creates an energy for that to be possible. Like, it's like this engagement of the molecules of consciousness that keep adding to what you are creating if you're willing to receive from everyone and everything and not have that place of, I've got this, I have to do it all on my own. It's not about having to do it all on your own.
No.
If you're willing to receive from the universe has your back.
Yeah.
So get out there and do it and be it, anything.
Go
You're not
for
going
it.
to fail. Yes.
Yeah.
So anything else you want to say to the listeners?
Just, there is so much freedom by being willing to get over whatever point of view you have about you can't, or you're not good enough, or it isn't going to work. And even with that still in your universe, in the face of it, going, what's the worst thing that could happen? And get out there and do it anyway.
You know, it's funny, anyone who knows me, my worst thing that could happen is I don't have anything to say.
She's always got something to say. How many of you have listened to these podcasts? I remember the first time I co-facilitated with Simone. It was just like a little intro class or something we did. I think it was in Perth, Australia. And I was basically arm candy because I sat beside her the whole night. And before we got on stage, Simone had said, well, you know, I'm a little tired tonight, so you might need to kind of like, you know, carry this forward. And at the end of it, I turned to her and I said, so how did I do? Because she just went for it. She was like, go, go, go. She's you know, like for this class that I just did in Dublin, it was my first solo class. I was, you know, breaking my virginity as a solo facilitator.
In Dublin?
In Dublin, Ireland. Luckily Irish. So I made a video to post on Facebook of me singing Like a Virgin by Madonna. And I got a blonde wig and did the whole thing. And I made this video. And before I posted it, I was like, I might look like a bit of an idiot here. This might not create what I think it's going to create. And I asked one of the hosts of the class, Melanie Mead from Ireland, and she said, well, what's the worst thing that can happen if you post it? I went, oh, good point. Send. And I had 3 of the 6 or 7 people in that class come because of that video.
That's so cool.
Because they said, oh, I could never do that.
Right.
I could never have that kind of courage.
But do you know what I find too? Is people love it when you're being real.
Yeah.
And not bleeding. Please don't bleed on people. It's not like, oh my God, my life is a trauma and drama and this just happened and blah, blah, blah. I'm not talking about bleeding. I'm talking about going, you know what? I just did this and I totally fucked up, you know, but good thing I'm cute, you know, or whatever. Or you be kooky but not being kooky as an act. It's like, what do you do? Like, what do you be? Like, I know when I'm being me, people are way more attracted to me. Like, it's that energy of like, okay, who is this? I mean, the amount of planes we get on and the amount of hosties and stuff that are just like, who are you? But it's like you're present with people. And that's so much what about being you in business, facilitating, anything it is. It's like being present with the energy of right now, right here, and what's required.
Exactly. Because it is actually in the world, if you look around, how many people are there really willing to just
be them,
be themselves?
Not many.
There's so much artifice out there of presenting this face of what they think they're supposed to be.
I mean, you're a presenter on stage. You're supposed to look and be a certain way. It's like you own a business. You're supposed to look and be a certain way. It's like you work for someone. You're supposed to look and be a certain way. It's like, what if that wasn't true? What if you could be you and that's what created the greatest change?
Yes, please.
Yes, I love it. I love it. I love it. Okay, so thank you so much, Christopher. Now, where can people find you if they want to, besides like in my red velvet couch room, which
yes, exactly.
By the time this airs, he hopefully we would have left this, I just looked down, the carpet's bright red too.
Yeah, everything's red here. There's a big red painting that's all red and white.
Yeah.
There's a dozen red roses.
It's
very red. Where they can find me on... I have a couple websites. TheEleganceOfLiving.com if you want to know about the world of art and antiques and having treasure find you in your life. You can find me there. Also, if you go to AccessConsciousness.com, and search facilitators and search for Chris Hughes. You can find me in my upcoming classes there, and you'll see the next one I think I've got coming up is in Houston, Texas. And then there may be something coming up as well, even in Tahiti at the end of the year. So,
which I'm very excited about.
Hey, what are the infinite possibilities? So reach out and touch someone. Just get in touch.
And if you want to find a Joy Business facilitator, go to accessjoyofbusiness.com and get your bars run. Accessconsciousness.com. Go to a bars class, find a bars facilitator somewhere in the world. We even have one in North Korea. We've got them all over the place.
No kidding. North Korea.
Yeah. Isn't that amazing? Isn't that cool?
The world's a different place.
The world is a different place. Yeah, absolutely. Now, I've also got a masterclass that's happening in Noosa, Australia in November, and it's going to be live streamed. So you can either come to Noosa, which is a fabulous place. There's lots of beaches, lots of yummy places to be, or you can jump on live stream. It's a 3-day masterclass. It's going to be awesome, and I'm just trying to find the dates for you. It is from the 24th to the 26th of November.
In Noosa.
In Noosa, yeah.
Nice.
So thanks for joining us, guys. If you like it, you can sign up for the summary, tell your friends, family, foe, etc. You know what? Be you. Change the world. Be you. Have fun.
Mm-hmm.
What if the purpose of life was just to have fun? Quote unquote, Gary Douglas. One of my favorite things he ever said.
And yes, that words to live by.
Yes. Thanks for being here, Chris.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.